On today's Locked On Texans podcast, living up to the Swarm defensive name. How can the Texans get carried by this defense and win some more games?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Monday episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your Texan football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. Of course, I'm joined by none other than Sports Illustrated's own and Texan credentialed media member, Cody Davis. If you are new to the Locked On Texans channel or podcast, thank you for stopping on by. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texan podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, including YouTube. Also, if you are one of our returning listeners, I know we're really family and friends. Thank you for coming back, and make sure you continue to come back as we cover your team every day. Big week for the Houston Texans. So we look at more takeaways from day 13 of training camp, living up to the Swarm defense. We got to talk about what's going on with Case, as in Case Keenum. Before we do that, like I said, big week for Houston. They have the joint practices for the Miami Dolphins this week. And when you coach under a Shanahan, there's always, it seems like now in the NFL, as this tree continues to expand, there's always some lineage and some familiarity and some, this colleague is going back to face this colleague. As we know, Mike McDaniels was a part of the coaching staff for the San Francisco 49ers before leaving to head over to the Miami Dolphins. DeMeco Ryans, head coach here in Houston, also a part of that same coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball. And so they're getting an opportunity to face off against one another as first-year head coaches first-year head coach for DeMeco Ryans, second-year head coach is Mike McDaniels, formerly of the Shanahan tree. But, Cody, what's going on with Case Keenum?
Well, as of right now, the Houston Texans did have an opportunity to sign a new quarterback in E.J. Perry, and that was a little bit surprising because we thought for a quick second that on Sunday we was going to see 4 quarterbacks out there wearing red jerseys. However, as expected, we saw 3, but Case Keenum was not in attendance, and that was a little bit alarming because, as you guys know, Case Keenum had a fairly good game in the win against the New England Patriots Thursday night, where he went 9 for 14 for 79 yards and 1 touchdown. He was at practice on Saturday. However, we noticed that Case didn't finish practice. And then on yesterday, talking to a couple people, even though Coach DeMeco Ryans did not confirm it, talking to a couple people, and it seemed like Case Keenum might be dealing with an injury that he sustained Thursday night, which would make sense given that he did leave practice early on Saturday. So as of right now, the Houston Texans quarterback room has C.J. Stroud, Davis Mills, and E.J. Perry. And when you look at the addition of E.J., I don't really expect anything much from him. As a matter of fact, just take a listen to what Coach DeMeco Ryans had to say about his addition.
We added E.J. Perry. He's with us in the spring, so wanted to add another quarterback to help us out here in training camp. So that's why E.J. is here.
EJ only played about 3 or 4 snaps and only attempted 1 pass, and that was an incompletion to Jordan Murray. So once again, whatever's going on with Case Keenum, I'm hoping that he comes back, because one thing about Case, he does have value to that quarterback room. As a matter of fact, Case talked about Thursday night after C.J. Stroud threw that long interception. He talked about how he had an opportunity to really just help CJ, show him what he did wrong when they look back at the film. And I like that because, John, listeners and viewers, you know me, ever since covering both the Houston Rockets and the Houston Texans through their whole entire rebuild, it's very important when you have a young prospect like that can learn from a veteran, an additional source. That means that's going to be extra help, which means we might see a better version of CJ Stroud moving forward. But, speedy recovery to Case Keenum. Definitely going to keep our eye out on that, and hopefully he will be back sooner rather than later. Some other quick takeaways in terms of a quote-unquote injury report for the Houston Texans. Kenyon Green did not practice with the Texans on Sunday. It seemed like it was just an off day for him because you got to keep in mind he is still trying to make his way back from the knee surgery that he had during the offseason. But the biggest alarming was Hassan Ridgeway. After the first set of 11-on-11 play, he did leave practice early. What looked like to be an arm injury, so we will know more about that later on today. And a quick note, the offensive line had an opportunity to see Titus Howard get some on-field work prior to practice. That was really good. He was working alongside I believe it was Shaq Mason and Laramie Tunsil, so that was really good. Then he went to the training field all the way in the back and got some more work, but that left hand isn't as heavily wrapped as it once was when we saw him towards the end of last week. That is a good thing. So it seemed like he's doing everything that he can to not only stay in shape, but make sure that he is back by week 1 of the regular season. And when you look at that right tackle position, both George Fant and Austin Deckler split first team reps. Both of those guys had a decent day, but I'm not about to evaluate anything until I see them go up against the Miami Dolphins. Because look, after Titus Howard went down last week, I came on this show and even wrote about it for SI that George Fant and Austin Deckler had somewhat of a subpar day. I felt really confident with them going into their very first preseason game. However, Austin Deckler looked terrible during that game, but that's the latest what's going on with the Houston Texans.
Yeah, then you talk about those joint practices and looking at and evaluating George Fant and Austin Deckler against other teams. Miami has Christian Wilkerson, Jalen Phillips. So they have Emmanuel Ogbo is also a guy that I really do like. So they got some guys that underrated players on that defensive front that you got to worry about, and I think that will be some good test for Deckler, who I was kind of shocked at how bad he played. Honestly,
he gave up about 3 or 4 pressures.
Yeah, he had a very rough night. Yeah, Fant, I believe, allowed a sack as well. So getting them the opportunities to get more reps against other players throughout the week, and then on Saturday's preseason game at 3:00, that's going to be great. Also, the Houston Texans did waive. It's hard to hear this one. Validate, the undrafted rookie free agent running back. Houston gave him a lot of money actually at the time that they signed him. But the fact of the matter is, guys, when we have had the opportunity, and I think we owe you guys an apology because we haven't accurately talked about the running back competition. Stop me if I'm wrong, but of course, Damian Pierce and Devin Singletary. But Dokes has been looking very good for Houston during training camp, throughout camp, and the way he's played. I know there was a lot of hype around Validate, but I can see maybe Houston bringing him back to be a part of this practice squad. Remember, Devin Singletary is on a 1-year deal. Dokes is also on a 1-year deal, so maybe they keep him stashed away to pair with Damian Pierce, for the future. But Dokes has ran the ball effectively for this Houston Texan team. And he kind of played his way to, if you're evaluating the running backs, if I'm looking at Danny Barrett, I'm looking at Coach D'Amico Ryans. If I'm in that room while they're looking at players that they want to keep, the fact of the matter is Dokes has outplayed Validate, so he was waived by the Houston Texans. The Texans also signed Adam Humphries, wide receiver Adam Humphries. You guys may remember him from his Tennessee Titan days. Cody already mentioned EJ Perry. They also signed wide receiver Victor Bowden, who has a career 512 return yards. Steven Sims got a bulk of the return opportunities during the first preseason game. I wasn't impressed at all. And so maybe Houston is looking at bringing in somebody that can compete as their returner. Didn't necessarily see a whole bunch of Tank Dell like I thought we would. So those are the signings for the Houston Texans after their weekend of winning football games, evaluating their roster, and trying to improve.
You're not seeing Tank Dell because he's too busy making plays with the wide receiver. Because, as a matter of fact, my favorite part of training camp, we had an opportunity to talk to Tank Dell. When he walked up to the podium, Coach DeMeco Ryans came back because at this point he had already left the tent. He circled around, and before Tank Dell started taking questions, he came in and was like, "Hey, Tank, stop picking apart my defense," because once again, he was one of the main receivers. Matter of fact, the main receivers going out there and making plays. And we about to get into how great that defense looked during day 13 of training camp. But to know that Tank Dell has already surpass expectations of what we had for that young man, I'm to the point now I am very excited to see what the future has in store for him just on his rookie season alone.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he does Saturday versus the Miami Dolphins. They just signed Eli Apple, so I would love to see Tank Dell lined up versus Eli Apple because I know that'll be barbecue chicken. They also have Xavier Howard out of Houston. Deshaun Elliott, the safety over there as well. So looking forward to seeing what Tank Dell continues to do during his preseason run as we get ready for the regular season of the 2023 year. August is here, and we all know what that means. This is the official start of fantasy football drafting month. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out best ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you do is one live snake draft, no waivers, no trades. Underdog sets your best lineup every week. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania Tournament. The largest fantasy football contest of all time is back, and even bigger with $15 million of total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Last year, the winner drafted their team in July, so don't wait around. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON, to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code Locked On. Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. More notes from day 13 of training camp. Case Keenum, of course, did not practice. Also, Christian Kirksey still out with a hamstring. Brevin Jordan, hamstring, did not practice. Dalton King, Brandon Hill, safety, rookie safety from Pitt, hamstring injury, also did not practice as well. And, of course, we know about Titus Howard. Thomas Booker also did not practice. Tegan Quatoriano did return back to practice. And, honestly, guys, this young man, I think at this point, is fighting an uphill battle simply because of the time missed. Eric Tomlinson, also Nick Vannett. Houston has brought in some guys at that tight end position who has been playing well for Houston in terms of being a tight end 2, tight end 3. So even though it's an uphill battle, I am looking forward to seeing what TQ can do the next couple of weeks in training camp and also take advantage of his opportunities during these preseason games. Now, we look at the living up to the swarm moniker this team has. DeMeco Ryans talked about a little scuffle that they had at practice between Christian Harris and Devin Singletary, sophomore Harris linebacker. New year for Devin Singletary, first year in Houston, running back. So they got into a little scuffle. Cody, please tell us about it. But you know what DeMeco Ryans said? Finally. Finally. And listen, how long have y'all heard me talk about just wanted to see, of course, in terms of good competition, nothing too crazy, but let's go ahead and see a scuffle. Let's go ahead and see some guys. Like we're talking about day 13 of training camp. How we didn't talk about that yet?
Look, I don't know what the defense was on Sunday, but I wasn't surprised that we finally got a scuffle going on at practice because, John, listeners and viewers, the defense intensity was just on another level. And what took place on that scuffle is the perfect example of the defense's intensity because CJ Stroud had connected with Devin Singletary on a check down play. And Singletary, was getting ready to go out of bounds. And all of a sudden, Christian Harris came out of nowhere and just gave him a little, He just fell out of bounds. Both of them got up. There was a shoving match going on. Of course, offense and defense got involved, and split both of them apart. They dapped up and made up a little bit later. But John, listeners and viewers, when I tell you the intensity with that defense was on another level, I'm talking about hard hits. I'm talking about making plays on the ball. As a matter of fact, CJ Stroud had connected with Noah Brown, hard hit, Noah Brown fumble, Christian Harris recovers the fumble. So as of right now, the Houston Texans takeaway for training camp is up to 11. However, they dropped at least 3 interceptions between Ward, Nelson, and who was the other one? Derek Stingley. All 3 of those guys dropped an interception. And before moving on, I just want you guys just to listen to what Coach D'Amico Ryans had to say about the mentality of this defense. Remember, this is in practice.
The mentality of our defense is swarm, and that doesn't change, right? We want to be an attacking, aggressive defense, and it's 11 guys flying around with their hair on fire, making plays, playing for each other. But it's a disciplined brand of football. It's not everybody just running all over the place and not knowing exactly where they should be. It's about that puzzle coming together. It's 11 pieces playing together, playing in sync, and it's going to be a swarming attacking defense. That's what you see out here in practice, and that's what you'll see in games.
What I wanted to talk about, and I think this is the entire point of this segment here, is will this team live by the defense? Will this team, for year one, rookie quarterback, rookie OC, still really need to see how this offensive line plays as a unit. We've seen it, but against other teams, and how the run game can get established and how they can protect their quarterback. But if this team adopts, which it has so far, adopts the D'Amico Ryans identity in year one, how far can this team go? Because what we've seen, you've mentioned the 11 turnovers, could have been potentially 14 with the dropped interceptions. But what you're not seeing, guys, the tackle for losses that's been going on with Will Anderson, who's been going crazy. The D tackles with Malik Collins and Roy Lopez and Hassan Ridgeway and Sheldon Rankins and Kurt Hennis. Like, you've guys seen that against the Patriots. Now, granted, that was a lot of the, second and third team offensive linemen, but you still look at Houston having an opportunity to get some of their second and third team offensive line out there, defensive line out there, and they're having some good moments. And so the importance of just adopting this identity, this swarm identity from D'Amico Ryans, I think will be important, because you hired him to right the wrongs of the past for this defense. You didn't want to go through another year of cover 2. That was 2 years in a row. You didn't want to go through another year of just having guys not being able to capitalize. But overall, you didn't want to go through another year of allowing teams to rush for you 150 on the ground, 130 on the ground. You brought him in to cure the past mistakes that this team has went through. And so overall, I think it will be a win if this team adopts the identity of D'Amico Ryans. And so far, guys, that's what's been going on.
Yeah, and to kind of like look at it from another standpoint, John, you just say you consider it a win for this team to adopt the mentality of Coach D'Amico Ryans, and they certainly have, just like you just said. However, do you think it will be somewhat of a negative if this team relied too heavily on the defense? And I only say that because, look, without a shadow of a doubt, this team is going to be better. But a part of the success of this team will rely on the development of CJ Stroud. And look, he's going to be a phenomenal player in this league, but it's going to take him time to develop. As a matter of fact, I want to say all of last week, going into the preseason game against the New England Patriots, that was the best I've seen him play in practice, in terms of making sure that his offense is efficient, pushing the ball down the field. As a matter of fact, protecting the football. But on yesterday, when the defense picked up its intensity, you saw CJ Stroud kind of revert back to holding the ball a little bit longer. I just mentioned, Derek Stingley and Steven Nelson and Jimmy Ward, all three of them had a drop interception, and all three of that came from CJ Stroud. So, I kind of go back to last year in a way where there was moments where the defense did their job, but due to the inefficiencies of the offense, they just got tired out. In a lot of those games, majority, so those one-score losses, you looked and say, look, the defense did their job. However, because Davis Mills wasn't able to execute, because, the lack of weapons on offense, because the offensive line didn't really do their job towards the end of the game, that was part of the reason why we saw the Houston Texans just come apart in the second half, especially in those fourth quarters. Do you think it will be somewhat of a disappointment if this team relied too heavily upon the defense?
No. And let me tell you why. You hired a defensive coach, right? And so I think if we were to look directly at Denver, right? They hired Sean Payton. They did a lot for Sean Payton. But if that Denver offense looks the same as it did the year before, then you will look directly to that and say that's a failure. Same with, I think that was it Brandon Staley and for the Chargers. Like if you look at a coach that was brought in and what they're supposed to be good at, that's why Nathaniel Hackett in Denver last year was bad. But if they don't do exactly, or that team doesn't replicate what you're supposed to be good at, then that's a failure, right? So instead of looking at DeMeco, let's look at New York, the Jets. Once Robert Saleh arrived, and you were able to see throughout the course of his time, this is his third year now, his tenure so far has been a success because the New York Jets have been good in what he's been good at. And so now you look at it from a front office standpoint, the pressure's on the front office to make sure the other side of the ball has the players that they need, and then we'll work out the coaches. But I don't worry about that. I think Bobby Slogan's going to get it done, but absolutely not. You brought in DeMeco Ryans because of the swarm. You brought in DeMeco Ryans again to stop getting ran throughout the seasons. 150 yards again, 140, 130. You brought in DeMeco Ryans to get the best out of Derek Stingley, who, by the way, the amount of targets that's going Derek Stingley's way in practice decreases like every day, it seems like. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're 100% correct.
Right, you brought in DeMeco to get the best out of Jalen Petrie. You brought in DeMeco Ryans so he can bring other players, and then one of the players you brought over, Jimmy Ward, who has been balling for this team, right? You bring in a coach so that coach can set his identity. So if Houston goes out there, let's say they win 6 games this year. In those 6 games, if they are winning by 3, but the team that they win against only rushed for 93 yards, I'm taking that. Yes. We've seen teams go crazy if they win by a touchdown, right? And the offense may have struggled, but they were able to pull a win out. But then you see that opposing team's quarterback, 3 turnovers. You take that. You bring in DeMeco Ryans so he sets the tone and the culture. And please stop me if I'm wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for all of those that are still here. That is what DeMeco Ryans has been able to do. What you guys saw Thursday in that first preseason game really gives you a glimpse of what's been going on throughout camp, right? These guys are not only smart, tough, and dependable like before, they're fast to their spots. They are disciplined. They know where they're supposed to be in their assignments. Overall, to highlight the scuffle and kind of bring this full circle, they are nastier now. And so this is a team full of SEC guys, by the way. So shout out to Nick Casario for pulling this off. Then you got the best Big 12 DB maybe to come out in that draft. But these guys are putting in work and they're showing. So I wouldn't have a problem if we look at the categories from Houston last year. I think 31st in the run to 27 to 28 defending the pass, things of that nature. Let's say all of those, You go from 31st to 20th. You go from 27th to 19th or 18th. You got to count that as a win. And if that's the case, D'Amico Ryans was absolutely the right hire for this job. No doubt about it. And I believe that right now.
I agree. I just hope that the offense can at least somewhat match the intensity of what they're doing on what the defense is doing. I just don't want it to be a waste. I don't want it to be a standpoint where, the defense get a turnover and then next thing the offense goes 3 and out. And I know a lot of that, goes into the new offensive coordinator, Bobby Sloyd, because I also think he has a hand in that, because going back to what you mentioned on Thursday, I think Bobby Sloyd is going to be the offensive coordinator who is basically going to make sure he put these players in the right position to succeed.
Yeah, but you're looking at a situation where we're looking at year one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going based off of the year-to-year turnaround
mm-hmm.
with the rookie OC, with the rookie quarterback. I can't attach that to D'Amico Ryans yet. D'Amico Ryans can only get attached to what he's doing, which is why he's called him the defensive players. The offense will come along, right? Because you look at that situation, because it's so new, right? And you are being anchored by a rookie young quarterback, it's going to need some time in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Main reason why the New York Jets swung for Aaron Rodgers, because we have the defense in place to win a championship. And we drafted so well, we now have the weapons. We needed the quarterback. And so it's unfair to judge Robert Saleh off the offense, because why was he brought to this team? Coach defense. Now you get Quentin Williams with a I'm not a rookie, but you get him with a rookie contract, a stout year. He goes out there, he puts up crazy numbers. Then you get other guys involved. You got Sauce Gardner, who's an all-pro this rookie year. Then you got you got all these players. Now we got to go get the quarterback. For Houston, they are kind of in a situation that the New York Jets was in, looking at last year with Zach Wilson potentially. I feel like C.J. Stroud is just a better quarterback, and it'll turn out over time for him to be better. But you give that side of the ball that grace and time because of the youth that you want to see grow from their quarterback position. Football season is back. It's about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Right now, you bet on the Super Bowl winner. You can go in and bet on the Super Bowl winner right now. Then after that, you'll get some bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. If you believe the Houston Texans will be the Super Bowl winner, then you'll win bonus bets every time they win a regular season game. If you feel like the Saints will be the Super Bowl winner, you'll win every time you'll get those bonus bets every time they win the game. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use those bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sports book. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Cody, more takeaways from day 13.
Like I mentioned, C.J. Stroud kind of struggled against a really good defense on Sunday. However, Davis Mills did not. As a matter of fact, I think Davis Mills came away with one of his best practices. I believe he had connected with a touchdown. I can't remember who it was, but during the second half of 11-on-11, he looked really good, pushing the ball downfield. He had connected with, I believe it was Noah Brown. Yeah, he connected with Noah Brown for about 15 yards. And like I mentioned, man, Davis Mills looked really good on yesterday. I'm really interested to see how this first team, second team reps is going to work throughout the week, because as of right now, Coach D'Amico Ryans have not named a starter for Saturday's game. And I'm pretty sure the joint practice is going to say a lot on who's going to take first and second team reps. So that was another takeaway from day 13 of practice. By the way, Steven Nelson and this team's ability to stop the run looked really good. That might have been the best I seen them play against Dameon Pierce. There was a moment where as soon as the handoff took place between CJ Stroud and Dameon Pierce, Steven Nelson was already in the backfield for a loss of 2 yards. And that might have been the highlight of the day. Day 13 was literally just a big highlight for that defense. John, I think the only offensive player that got things going outside of Davis Mills was Tank Dell. Like I mentioned, he was the primary receiver going out there making plays. But speaking of the receiving core, and John, you can let me know the few days you was out there if you saw the same, but I'm not going to lie to you guys. Robert Woods has been a little bit of a disappointment because when I go back and I take a look at my notes, look at players that we highlighted on the show, players that I wrote about, we have mentioned John Mechie. Of course, we getting to the point Tank Dell is basically consistent at this point. Nico Collins has made big plays. Noah Brown has been really consistent. But, oh my God, Hutchinson, how can I even forget about him? As a matter of fact, he had a pretty nice catch today as well. But the one guy that I leave NRG Stadium and I'm thinking to myself,
10 million guaranteed.
Where is he? It's been Robert Woods. And I remember, John, I wasn't big on the Robert Woods signing to begin with. I know some people was out there saying that he could be the number one wide receiver, whatever the case might be. But, 13, 14 days in the training camp, I could probably count on one, maybe two hands how many receptions that he had. And look, to me personally, I always felt like his addition to this team was just to help with the development for a lot of those youth guys that you have at that position group. But I haven't really seen him do much.
Yeah. No, let's be real here, right? At no point from when I've been out there in my own eyes, and Cody's been out there longer, so please take heed to what he's saying. But at no point have I said, "Oh wow, okay, Robert Woods."
Yeah,
and he is making at least it's going to be guaranteed $10 million. And when we look at my criticism for that, I always felt like that was a move that was made. That was a rushed move, right? And so I've never liked it. I've liked the addition, didn't like it for the money, and so now I think for Houston, unless they want to bite, I think $7.5 million that they're gonna, if they move on from him, that'd be in dead money. Robert Woods is going to make this team. Now, in fairness, he is a vet, a 19-year vet. Laramie Tunsil didn't play in preseason game 1. Robert Woods didn't play. So, I understand.
Laramie Woods.
What I want to get at is I want to see Woods against other teams. I want to see what he's going to do when he's out on the field against somebody else. Plain and simple. And what we've liked about Robert Woods is his comfortability in a system like this. So let's see it first. But honestly, guys, between the young bucks, the rookies, and Nico Collins, who you can say hasn't had consistent back-to-back days to where he's clearly the number one receiver. The thing about Nico is I feel like Nico just hasn't got the targets because Nico has made some plays for our training camp.
A lot of them against Stingley,
a couple of them on Stingley. He's been making some plays. Just kind of for Nico, it just kind of feels like when y'all need me on the field, I'll go do something so far. But for Robert Woods, I hadn't got anything from him yet. And I think that's a disappointment because $10 million guaranteed.
Hey, these joint practices going to be big. And I think I'm going to save my true evaluations on Robert Woods then.
Yeah, and I want to see a fight too. I want to see a fight. Go fight Miami, right? Tank Dell, don't be scared because you're from Florida now. But shout out to Tank Dell, man. That young man has been,
the whole rookie receiving core. Remember me prior for training camp? Oh, you got to take them on slow. Oh, my God.
No, and I'm going to tell you what I want to see more of. More opportunities for John Mechie.
It's coming.
It's coming, guys. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you guys for checking out today's show. Give me a follow at John_Hickman12. This Saturday, after the game, I'm doing another live stream for Bleacher Report post-game reaction. So make sure you tap in on that, and I'll make sure I send out the link as soon as it's ready.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.